Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back for another Total War video. Today, I'm going to take you through 5 essential tips and tricks to Divide Et Impera, a fantastic mod that takes buggy and unimpressive Rome 2 to what could possibly be one of the best Total War experiences you'll ever have. Whether you are a beginner of DEI or a veteran, I promise that you will learn at least one thing that will help you with your campaign and enjoy DEI even more. I'm the Terminator, and if you enjoy this video or if you find it useful, then please do give it a like and drop your thoughts or questions in the comment section below. Let's get started. DEI is a massive, and I don't say that lightly, a massive mod that changes everything about base game Rome 2 to make it slower paced, more challenging, immersive, historically accurate, and ultimately a game that really engages you every step of the way. If you're not familiar with all the changes the mod introduces, then I recommend you check out my beginner's guide video just to get a base knowledge for everything you need to know. With any faction in DEI, you start with a coffer of 20,000. So as a smaller faction especially, you have a choice, either to invest in a stack or two and rush neighboring enemy regions, or invest in your cities and turtle up, putting yourself into a defensive position. Take Rome for example. You have the Etruscans to your north and Epirus to your east. If you try to invest in both your cities and your armies at the same time, you will likely wait too long and not have enough forces to deal with potentially 3 to 4 stacks of armies coming at you from 2 sides. So you need to either be defensive or you really need to be aggressive. My personal preference would be to go aggressive here, as being on a 2-front war at the start is not ideal, especially in DEI, but you can go either way. Spend your money on either buildings that provide as much food and money as possible, so farms, fisheries, trade ports, local resource buildings, or cheap levy units for your armies to crush neighboring regions and consolidate your empire. Otherwise, you risk the AI building big, well-manned armies that are difficult to deal with. The point here, guys, is your first 10 turns are super important. So how you spend your money, what type of units you get, and ultimately how you decide to deal with your initial enemies will likely determine the next 50 to 100 turns. Go big with aggressive plays, guys, or defensive for quick consolidation. There are different ways of dealing with diplomatic relations, but one thing you absolutely need to do is get as many trade agreements and non-aggression pacts as possible, whether you plan on attacking a faction or not. This will not only supplement your income and secure your borders, but if the diplomatic action has a high or even medium chance of success, then you can usually negotiate a lot of money out of the faction as well, depending on how wealthy they are. The other side of this is, if you're already at war, as you are with Rome for example, then you need to secure your neutral borders and make sure you don't have to worry about a second war happening. You almost don't have the money or power to deal with 2 wars at once, so using non-aggressions to keep potential enemies at bay while you deal with a war is super helpful, especially in DEI. The point here, guys, is diplomacy is another tool you can use to help things with your income, and make sure especially that your borders are secure while you're focused on a war. So absolutely always make sure that you're checking diplomacy here and there every few turns, that you're really making the most out of the factions around you. As with every Total War game, public order and happiness is super important, and even more so in Divide Et Impera. There are a few tips and tricks you can use to maintain it and make sure you don't go too far into the negative. The first is culture. If you have a region that's constantly in the negative by -1 to -5 per turn, regardless of whether there's an army nearby or if you have bread and games edict enabled, I guarantee it's because the local populace has a different culture to yours. You need to keep an eye on culture. It can get out of hand really quickly, and if it does, lead to unnecessary rebellions. So make sure you've got those cultural conversion buildings and general or dignitary skills that help convert the local populace as quickly as possible. With every faction as well, you'll have a religious building that either helps with public order or cultural conversion, so remember to build those up as well. The second is, unless you've got a submod that removes this, which there is, never keep your armies stationed in cities. They cause negative public order, so big tip with this one. In fact, one thing you can do with armies is put them on patrol, which boosts your local public order by a bit. Third, and probably most underappreciated, is political characters. Using the hold game's action through characters, you can actually increase turn-by-turn happiness for a province by up to +10, which is huge. I think it lasts like 3 turns, and every time you use it, it gets more expensive, but it's a great little thing you can use, so definitely keep that in mind. Generals, governors, and dignitaries also administratively can help grow and maintain public order, so make sure you invest in these characters and make sure you're stationing a general at least per province early game to make the most out of boosting the happiness in that province, while also investing in skills as they gain more experience. Great little early game tip there. Obviously, army composition heavily depends on which faction you're going to go with, but for me, an unspoken rule is making sure you have enough ranged and cavalry units. Generally speaking, with any battle, if the enemy has more archers and more cav than you're going to have a tough time. Early game, as I said before, you want to invest in cheap units that give you 15 to 18 units per army, and if you want to supplement the force last minute for an important battle, you can always hire a few mercenaries. Remember, the AI will always build up armies without touching the mercenary pool, so if you're going for an aggressive play, you can do it quicker by building up a 12 to 14 unit army and then adding 3 to 5 local mercenary units. That way, you can catch your enemies by surprise and engage a 6 to 10 stack plus a small-ish garrison with your large army. It's very effective early game, especially if you're struggling as Rome, so definitely give this one a try. For late game army composition, you can obviously do whatever you want, but remember, almost every faction can and does go through some sort of military reform, so you will come up against better equipped and more advanced units over time. Prepare for big battles and always try to have a backup army if you can. Arguably, the most complicated system in Divide Et Impera is the supply system. You need to have regions that produce enough supply to keep your armies fed and keep military campaigns going, otherwise you'll start suffering from attrition really quickly, and the enemy will take advantage of this. There are various buildings that help support the supply in regions that extend the supply line out further and increase your supply cap so you can store more for rainy days. Make sure for big campaigns that might last a while longer that you have a baggage train for armies or a supply ship for naval forces, as these will help offset attrition as much as possible. If you're unfamiliar with the system, then definitely watch my beginner's guide video or check out the DEI fact page, as there's a lot to grasp, and if supplies go out of control, your conquests will quickly fail. Finally guys, I wanted to give you 3 smaller bonus tips for your DEI campaigns that I'll list out on the screen now. Definitely keep an eye on empire maintenance. This is an additional cost that will grow larger as your empire grows. It can be crippling late game, so make sure you've invested in the dignitary, governor, and general skills that will help offset it. Army replenishment in DEI heavily depends on local population and in many cases won't happen for one reason or another. So if you're fighting a battle and are tempted by auto-resolve, I would say if the casualties are over 30%, don't do it. Fight the battle. It's worth the time you take to replenish the army if you minimize casualties to 10 to 20% by playing it. Agents, when deployed in foreign regions, steal food. So if you're low on food and you have a couple of agents, get them deployed to make sure as an empire you have enough food to keep going. DEI is a beast of a mod that at first can seem a bit intimidating, but hopefully the tips we've been through today will enable you to enjoy your campaign a bit better and prepare you for glorious total war. Obviously, these are mainly tips that help with your DEI campaign, but drop a comment below if you would like a DEI battle tips video as well. Hope you enjoyed the video guys, and if you did, give it a like and drop your thoughts in the comment section below, or any other tips that you can think of that I didn't cover here. Subscribe to the channel for more Divide Et Impera and generally Total War content, news, and gameplay. Thanks for watching guys, and see you next time.